Anybody met Katie?
She introduced herself.
Okay, okay. Came in late. I want to make sure we're doing rude.
Well, she was shy.
All right.
That's when you serve people.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First item will be roll call.
Brown,
Here.
Buckley,
Here.
Fritz,
Here.
Gerke,
Here.
Minnion,
Here.
Now,
Next item will be motion to approve the agenda, and we can strike item B off unfinished business. We took care of the election certification yesterday.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Has everyone had a chance to look over the previous meeting's minutes? There are no additions or corrections, so stand approved as presented. Was there any public comments sent in? Officers report, chief's report.
Okay. Not a whole lot reported on this. No call volume surprises or anything. That was submitted last time. The mileages, I'm going to try and keep that a running total on here, just so you gentlemen can be aware of where we're at in space and time. And I can't recall if I told you what the colors are all about. That's just a triage to say the green ones are the lower mileage, the yellow ones are stuff we need to keep an eye on, and the red ones are the ones that are getting up there beyond where we'd like to see them. So no accidents, building and grounds, no problems. We did have a city inspection. It was not a real completely thorough inspection. It's my understanding that downtown Sedalia kind of comes around and looks at the older buildings, make sure everything's structurally sound on them. So everything was good. They were real happy to see we put a new roof on the place and blocked the windows up. That certainly helps with the structural integrity, no issues there. We are integrating that software. We've had some meetings and web teachings on it. We had some today, in fact, so we're moving right along on that, and it is amazing. It's working really well. It's already in use for a couple things on the education side. The scheduling one is quite a bit more intensive, so it's going to take a little more work to get it all set up and running, but it looks like a really nice system, and we're excited to see it get implemented. Let's see. We should be seeing an article out in February for media relations. I did just basically an email interview with Callis, and they are going to put something in Bothwell's section in the newspaper called, I believe it's called Healthy Living, and it's usually an inset in a paper in February. I don't have an actual date on that, but you might keep an eye out for that to come out in Democrat. Let's see. We've been looking at an oven and a refrigerator for Station 2. The refrigerator we're looking at one with an ice maker so that we can stop paying the rent on the ice machine out there and just move it inside. So that would be a nice break to have that going on. The area of the stove is where we're kind of tripping up a little bit because it's exactly 36 inches and you can't fit a 36-inch stove in a 36-inch hole apparently. So we're trying to figure out how to do that and keep the cost down on it. So we're currently working on that. We're continuing just to develop protocols with Pettis County Joint Communications, of course, in regards to how we respond to calls, how they intake calls, a lot of the real nuts and bolts of that operation. We're pretty deep into that right now. And I think it's going to work out really well. I think we're going to try and simplify things as far as, I'll pull this down. I sound muffled to myself. We're going to try and keep things as simple as possible when it comes to sending our units out. And also we're going to try and look at some improvements we can make on call intake, specifically for transferred patients, to where we can get as much information as possible prior to the paramedic even stepping into the room at the hospital. So I think that'll really help keep our times down, especially on some of these high acuity patients that need to go out yesterday. So things are looking really good on that front. I don't have any other employee issues to report. I think hopefully everybody's had a chance to kind of glance over everything else on there, but if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. And that's all I have for tonight.
Are there any questions for Eric?
Yeah, that new ambulance is coming next month,
Yes.
and that's replacing which one?
It'll be replacing, at this point, 7, the one that has an engine failure on it.
And then we approved the second one for this year, right?
The 1 and 2 will be the next ones out the door. Now, the 2's got a little higher mileage on it. They both had drivetrain replacement issues. One of them had a transmission, one had a motor. So that's why their mileage was stretched out a little further than normal.
Any other questions for Eric? If not, we'll move on to the CFO report. Jamie?
Good evening. My report starts on page 5. The first thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is our work comp insurance. Our year for work comp starts in April and ends at the end of March. So I just wanted to gauge if you guys wanted to put that out for bid. If so, we need to get that done, get that ready for the next meeting.
Probably a good idea to bid. Everybody agree?
Okay, so we want to get that put out. On page 5 is the bank balances. January 21st versus January 7th is the top part of the report. The bottom half shows this year, January 21st versus last year, January 21st, and the net change there. And then the cash reserve chart, that's still showing just as it was last time. We only update that once a month. Anybody have any questions on any of that? You can see there where we set up the that new account we talked about last meeting, the FSA, HSA, HRA account. And we've been transferring money as the payrolls occur. And then also the amount for the HRA was transferred into that account. Any questions on any of that? Any other transactions? Page 9 is our cash reserve analysis as of, well, the date says the 8th, but it was actually the 21st versus the 8th. So pretty much just the same, just a little bit different. Pretty much less than a day difference. So page 10 is the bills that are due currently. And then pages 11 and 12 are the details finally. I'm not sure what I kept missing, but they're in there now. Any questions?
Mr. Meehan has.
I really don't have a question, but you cut out there when we were looking at page 6, 7, and 8. So I couldn't hear or understand what you were saying. So
I just asked if there was any questions on any of those transactions. Okay. And did you not hear the cash reserve analysis?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So page 10 and then 11 and 12 are the bills. Anybody have any questions on any of those? Okay. I put in here the December report from EMS MC, so you guys can see how that's going. So if you look at it shows you the gross charges, excuse me, the number of trips that were billed, contractual allowances, and then our net charges. Then it also shows us adjustments, payments, write-offs, refunds, and current balance due. It also shows us the gross charge per trip. So since EMSMC has been billing, our gross charge per trip average has been $1,238.34. Of that, the amount we actually receive per trip is only about $326 per trip. So that's down a little bit. A lot of that has to do with the makeup in payers and the increased amount of deductibles that people are getting with their health insurance, putting more responsibility on the patient. We don't collect near as much of that portion as we do from the insurance companies. So we are collecting about 26% or about a quarter on every dollar we bill. So. And they also give us our average loaded miles, our trip count trend, and you can see it. It's a year report, so it jumps up when they actually started billing for us. And then the rest of that is just the details that make up all of those numbers broken down by payer. And then on the page 18, it shows us the AR, the outstanding AR aging by payer category. And this total is just since July, of course. And then the last page is the accounts receivable reconciliation report. Any questions on any of those items? End of my report.
Are there any questions for Jamie?
Jamie, has EMSMC said anything about any increase in uninsured patients as far as our billing is concerned?
I mean, they haven't really said anything. They don't have anything to compare it to. But I mean, I do know that, was it last Thursday, they sent me a roster of, so there's a program through HHS, if there's uninsured COVID patients, that we can get paid Medicare rates for those patients. So they did send me quite a list. I mean, in reality, it's not that many in regards to how many patients we have, but it was 13. And that's the most we've had to submit uninsured. We only had one previous to that. So it's quite an uptick.
Jump right in there with that. Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions? Not, let's take a motion to pay the outstanding bills.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Medical director's report. Is he available? He's not on.
No.
We'll move on to the unfinished business. No removal bids presentation.
Just one that we received.
Just the top one.
Yes. These are just, the bills here. Can't pass.
One bid from S&P Landscaping and Irrigation. There's a cost breakdown of due to the depth of snow per visit for headquarters and for the highway TP. For the headquarters, 2 inches is $75, and what gets up to 10 inches is $275. And it graduates up every 2 inches. The TP is snow removal 2 inches is $85 and 10 inches is $285. And it is well graduates up every 2 inches like this.
Do they do shoveling sidewalks and snap too? Do y'all do that?
We typically do that. We've got those snowboards that take care of it.
It's parking services and drives. Service will be performed only after a minimum of 2 inches of snow has fallen. So are there any questions on that? It's the only bid we have.
Yeah, I don't know that I've got a question, but unless somebody else knows, but I don't know how much it normally costs, so if you don't have anything to compare it to,
Exactly.
then I'm kind of at a disadvantage. Is it, you know, I mean, I haven't seen it.
And since you don't have that, I guess the question is, do they have the insurance we require? Snow removal insurance report.
I know the company has insurance for the work they do on the lawns and sprinklers. But you think,
I guess that's a question we need to ask because it doesn't.
And then mostly do probably do there's insurance, and so we just, so we doesn't have.
So maybe we should clarify that they do have insurance. And put this on the next meeting's agenda.
or if they do have, then we accept it.
Do that. So we may need it for the next 2 weeks.
We can step to provide them to do that. Like,
We'll make that okay.
I'd honestly like to find out if there's a means to call them off if we don't need them out there. On that charge, just because it may have snowed 2 inches somewhere.
We got 2 inches on our lot.
Right. Yeah. So,
Right.
if we can clarify that.
Mr. Chairman, is what you're saying, Chief, is that if it's got barely 2 inches, you might not need them out?
Right, yeah, and most of the, we may need it in town and not out there, so, yeah.
I think that's a really good suggestion there. I mean, I don't know what kind of communication you need to have, but, you know, phone calls, you know.
Just have them check
Mhm.
with the management first before they start moving. Yep. No, he's not here because he's still snowing or something.
Usually somebody that say.
So we can take a motion to approve that bid contingent that they have the liability insurance and clarify that 2 inch.
Yeah, check something before they start.
Don't they do some mowing for us anyway?
Not that.
I know they do, but I don't know if they do it for the ambulance system or not.
No.
I would make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Bay windows replacement.
I don't, we don't have anything to report this time. We've got calls in to some folks. And then the structuring of the bid information is still in process. But
Okay.
nothing-
So we'll just,
Nothing needs to
we'll just table that item until the next week.
Yes, sir.
16th Street property lease agreement. Copy of that agreement is in the packet. Any questions on that?
Chairman, I did. Page 27, that might be the page of it. If I read this correctly, the amount that they agreed to pay us is prorated from the first day that they started parking over there. Is that, am I reading that correctly? Okay. And then the other one is, maybe a typo or something, but under number 2, under terms, about halfway down that paragraph, it says, of this lease shall prevail and rent shall be paid pro rata at the beginning of the term, said term being defined supra and in 2A below. And I don't see 2A below. And if I read through this, I didn't study it, but I think that if you strike and in 2A below, then that's probably all that needs to be done. But again, that was through a quick read.
Mr. Chairman, didn't our attorney tell us that?
He did, and then Eric kind of, the attorney drew it up for ingress, egress, and that sort of thing, instead of really parking in there, if you change it.
You know what they were talking about there, Chief?
Well, I'm looking. This is the issue. Very good. Yeah, I don't, the super is the $3,000, but there is no 2A, you're correct. I'd say, we just had something in there and didn't pull that one off.
Are there any other questions?
Just a suggestion here, Mr. Chairman, that maybe the simplest thing is to just draw a line here and then 2A below and initial. And then, these E would do the same thing.
Right. Any other questions? If not, I would take a motion to approve that contract with that change.
Mr. Chairman, before we go to point of order, this contract has not been executed, that's correct?
No,
Okay, well, if it's not been executed, then there's no reason to go ahead and change it since all parties have not even agreed to the agreement. So the agreement put before them would be an active agreement instead of coming striking out. Can we get that done, Chief?
Sure.
I think that'd be the better way to do it, Mr. Chairman.
your motion still stands.
It'd be a logical thing. It's an error and we recognize it should be removed.
Yeah, I just have it saved as a draft right now. Nobody else has copies.
Mr. Chairman, I guess you're looking at me because I made a motion. You think through that, and I think probably that's probably a good idea, as long as nobody else has seen this, then, it's a matter of rather than striking it, you would be removing it and then reprinting it, then you sign it and then send it to their signature. That would be logical. And I would so move that.
I can't confirm that is the case.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any other questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Sales tax, yeah. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I was
Yeah.
the one who originally thought that the board ought to consider adjusting the sales tax rate. And there was a couple things in the packet, and so whoever prepared and put those in there, maybe they could have talked about that and explained those.
Would you like to address those changes?
Sure. So I just put a couple of things in here, just information wise. So I put in here both the, well, for one, Pettis County Ambulance District at the time of formation was the only district to be supported solely by sales tax. So most districts are either supported by property tax or property tax and sales tax. All ambulance districts are tax supported. Most ambulance districts, oh, that was just what I just said, are both. And then I also put in the projected sales tax revenue at the current rate and at the rate that was proposed. So that's about $324,000 difference in the two rates. I also pulled some numbers as far as what Pettis County's population numbers were, and by population, how much that sales tax amounts to per resident. But since we are a sales tax, residents aren't the only one that pay that tax. So then I also pulled some numbers from a Pettis County, Missouri labor pool. That was a 2018 report. That is something that Economic Development had on their website, and calculated what the estimated cost per person employed in Pettis County is. Because most people that are employed in Pettis County are spending some money here as well. So the difference, if you look at residents only, if only residents were paying the sales tax, it would make $7.65 difference per resident of Pettis County to reduce the sales tax by $324,000. And then if you look at the labor pool, it would save about $4 per person to reduce the tax by $324,000. Then I also put in here just some numbers. What I put in the board report each board meeting is the book calculation, the definition of how you're supposed to calculate cash reserves. So I kind of just put in here what our cash was and then the encumbered amounts. So amounts that are already kind of spoken for, but are still sitting in our account. So we haven't actually written checks for them. But we need to keep those in mind when we look at what we have available. So our unencumbered cash balance is about 1.3 million. And our monthly operating expenses for 2021 are $483,928 per month, basically. So that's a little over almost 3 months. It's a little under 3 months worth of cash on hand. So I just provided that information for you. And then the approved budget, which you should have copies of. I meant to put those in the packet, but they didn't get in there. So I think Katie brought you guys copies of that, what you guys approved as far as the budget. So the excess on the budget is a little under 80,000. If we take 324,000 out of that, we'd be negative 244,000. Now, yes, we have some cash reserves that we can use for that. But if you don't take anything out of the budget, in about 5 years, we'll be flat broke going at the rate we are with the reduced sales tax rate. Then I just put some statutes in there that relate to the budget and the fact that it must balance. I also reached out to our auditor. That's the time of year I kind of reach out to her and see what she's thinking as far as timing anyways. And she recommends that we have 12 to 18 months in cash reserves on hand. So I just calculated what that amount would be. That would be $5.8 million. And then I also provided what our average annual capital expense estimate is based off of the estimates that Roy and Eric and I put together as far as equipment replacement and ambulance replacements. So that's right about 660,000. Some years it'll be higher, some years it'll be lower, just based on what's needed in the current year. And then just some information about other things to think about. Minimum wage is increasing 85 cents an hour until it reaches $12 an hour in 2023. And then we also need to think about planning for additional stations at some point. So that was just some things to think about. And then I also put in the sales tax rates for all the districts that have sales tax. And there's only a few that are less than the half cent that is allowed in the state. And most of these other districts, actually all of these other districts, are also supported by property tax in addition to their sales tax. So that was just some kind of educational information. So you guys had it to look at. Any questions on any of that?
So we're the only district solely supported by sales tax?
Yes.
When we were voted in, I don't know if that's still the case, but that was the case.
It is. It's actually, myself and Frank Foster went over to Jeff C. and we actually had the law changed, because Pettis County was out of 115 counties in the state of Missouri. When this district was formed, we were the last county in the state of Missouri that had any public funding going in to providing emergency medical services. That's a historical standpoint of where we were. Pettis County was last to get on board, so we're rather new.
So these with the lower sales tax rate, most likely are supported by property taxes.
Yes. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, and like, if you look at Taney County, theirs is 0.25%. They also have property tax, but their sales tax revenue at 0.25% is more than ours is at 0.5%.
Mr. Chairman, what's involved in getting property tax? I mean, if everyone else is doing it, why aren't we doing it? I'm just asking for information. Wondering why that.
Well, in reality, the sales tax is a fair way because the district serves everybody in the
Right.
area. And they'll pay that sales tax, where property tax, the people coming through town wouldn't contribute to that.
Well, no, I understand the sales tax would do that, because if they're driving on 65 or 50 and involved in an accident, they're using our service.
Right.
I was just wondering, I mean, that's true of all the ambulance districts. So why is it hard to get that here? I mean, is that,
You were involved.
Yeah, I can share. I don't know if you know historically housing, I was appointed by the city of Sedalia to be on the original committee, okay, that studied this thing along with the fire chiefs, all the bigwigs, leadership of emergency personnel. The way that the way the thinking was is that at the time, being last in line to get this thing going, we had nothing on the books with regard to a property tax, nothing. So the only revenues coming in for EMS were the reimbursements, which were insufficient for the private sector. That was the emphasis that we came in, that we were going to go for the 0.5 cent sales tax, and that we believed in the calculations would generate what we needed to do and had done here. So, we're actually coupling, a bundle of services here in a much more efficient way. We don't have a combination of the two. We're running off just the sales tax. So, I mean, you're getting a better deal here for the buck. I mean, most counties have both. They have a sales tax, and what's happened is they came on and got the sales tax because that's easier to bring in a vote than property tax when it comes to the political minds of voters. So the counties that have them both now, they brought their sales tax on in to subsidize, and realizing that their property tax and reimbursements, those two alone wouldn't work. Okay. And if I may, and then I'm going to shut up. Last year there was a bill, and it was unfortunately the session was cut short, and it was they didn't do any action on it. But a new bill is now being prepared to go before the Missouri legislature, and this has been it's widely held support, and I believe this passage is going to happen this year to change the law, Chapter 190, that allows a 1/2 cent sales tax like we have. It can now go to 1 cent. They're going to change that to 1 cent. Operating EMS is not getting cheaper, ladies and gentlemen. It's not getting more efficient. And to understand that you have to immerse yourself in the data and understand the data in the industry and focus on the industry itself. So did that answer your question, maybe?
yeah, that helped a little bit.
It's just it's just easier to pass a sales tax.
'Cause
And since we were last in line, why would it wouldn't make sense for us to go out and try to get a property tax and a sales tax, because we would have needed both. Because, the time we spent on this thing with the folks is we backed this thing together and understood what it would take numbers wise to serve the people of Pettis County with the number of ambulances and number of personnel. So, we had a target idea, and that's why we went for the full half cent. So,
Okay, thanks.
Or do you have other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I could make a few comments then. There's 60 or thereabouts ambulance district listed on here on the sales tax side, and most of them are at half cents with a few exceptions. But there are over 200 or thereabouts ambulance districts in the state of Missouri. So rather than look at it from just a percent, I think it would behoove us to look at efficiencies to see how much money different districts have for revenue versus the services that they provide. And, we're generating, we've got a very high quality ambulance district. We're spending over $6 million a year. And as that maybe as a baseline thinking point, I would share that, and all these districts are different. In other words, the miles or the square miles or the road miles are going to be a little bit different, and medical care, close proximity is going to be different. So there are definitely variables. But when you look at, contiguous county, Johnson County to the west of us, their total revenue is less than $5 million, and ours is a little over $6 million. And they have 65 employees, and they support 5 facilities. So, their overall plan is I'm sure is different maybe than ours because of that. But I guess what I'm saying is that with $5 million, $1 million less than what we generate, what they're able to do with their money. So I guess I'm just addressing that efficiency piece. Another example of that is Warren County. They have a half a cent sales tax. And a little bit of property tax. All of that generates their tax side of things generates 2.9 versus our 3.2. Not a whole lot of difference there, but they do operate 4 bases. One of them that seemed to be that jumped out at me was the Callaway County Ambulance District. Their sales tax, which is they have a combination of a sales tax and a property tax. And we've probably seen this, I think mainly affected school districts, but when you put in a sales tax or you put in a different tax, well, then you roll back another one. And that's what they did. And not to make it too complicated with that, but the sales tax generates about $2 million and the property check generates about 125. And their services generates 1.7. All those numbers, I'm sorry, just throwing those out there. But they have about 44,000 residents. Their square mileage is about the same. And yet they're operating on $3.8 million on an annual basis. So, the bottom line that thinks, efficiency is, how are they able to do that on less than 4 million, providing very good quality service, and it's costing us 6. So I just question we can create a budget using all the money, or we can create efficiencies to create a budget that makes it us as efficient as we can with still providing those same good quality services. So
Mr. Meehan, a question. Do you have the call volumes for the other districts?
You kind of broke up there, James.
please repeat, Jamie, you broke up.
Oh, I was just curious if you had the call volumes for the other districts.
Well, on some of them, I did jot down, I think Johnson County had, I think a little over 7,700 calls on volume. And Callaway County had a little over 5,000 calls. And another thing that I wrote down was that they had 840 square miles, and I think Pettis County, overall, all of Pettis County has a little over 900, I think, square miles. So
Yeah, that's just another thing you got to look at is the number of calls they're running versus the number of calls that we're running.
And Mr. Chairman, too, when we look at cash reserves, we're anticipating that, tomorrow or at some future time, that all revenue is going to just cease. And, that hasn't happened. The likelihood of that happening, in my mind, is very slim. So having 6 months, 9 months, or a year, or 18 months of reserve just doesn't make good sense for us to collect money from the taxpayers and just keep it in an account for that rainy day situation, as opposed to being efficient, providing the quality services that's necessary now.
Mr. Chairman, if you point of order, good sir. I don't know what the previous discussion is missing. It's been mapped out. It was a unanimous vote to approve the budget for this year. And I don't recall any mention of reducing revenues in preparation of that budget, which Jamie and Eric spent hundreds of hours, okay? And to bring this up in a manner now that, and to bring data to this floor that I don't believe is an accurate data to portray a decision that's not based on the data of this ambulance district. This district, which data has been brought to us, it's clearly evident that our administrator and CFO and the auditor and the folks that the document I passed out to you is part of a syllabus that was taught by people of ambulance districts that have been here in this state of Missouri for decades, people a lot smarter than the fine gentleman, Mr. Meehan, okay? So I'm going to defer to those individuals' recommendations, and I'm going to ask Mr. Chairman that we cease discussion and that the sales tax remain the same. I put that motion on the floor, Mr. Chairman.
Second to that motion.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion?
Yes, there is. I think there was some comment about me in that, in those comments, and I won't bring that back up in out of respect for you, Mr. Chairman. But I would point out that a comment was made that there was a vote to approve the current budget. I would remind the board that there was a vote to approve the budget for 2020 to roll it back, and the budget was approved with the rollback included, and then it did not get rolled back until the end of the first quarter of 2020, and then raised back up again just about 5 or 6 months later. So when we're talking about approving a budget, apparently that hasn't been our policy in the past, because if we would have left it at the lower rate last year.
Is there any other discussion? Yes.
The budget itself has been trimmed some. The requirement that we have a balanced budget is understood. I don't have a problem with that. What my concern is that in the beginning of this organization, during the campaigning for it, and even after it was approved, several people indicated to the public that this was seed money to get us going. And that there was thought that it probably would be rolled back some. No promises were made. It was thought that, it would roll. I was in several gatherings where that statement was made. My concern is that we need to have an ongoing review of the cost that we're dealing with. Siding a little bit with Mr. Meehan over here, talking about, the differences in the different ambulance districts. I understand that we run more calls than many of them. All right. But an ongoing process of finding what we can do next budget. In fact, this budget here was the first time you all ever did line item, wasn't it? Am I mistaken? Please tell me if I'm wrong.
No,
You've done line items
Yeah.
before?
Yeah.
Okay. But an active participation to let the public know that, hey, we're not just spending your money and taking what you give us. You know, we're trying to spend your money accordingly and to guard against people being able to say, well, that district over there does this and that district over there does that, not having the full information. You know, if we don't take an active part, I'm not saying we need to do it today, turn around and say that we need to cut the tax back today. But I do think it ought to be made prominent in our discussions throughout the year about looking forward to, you know, I mean, we don't have a 5-year plan. But in that 5-year plan, we should have to where we can come down and say, we can reduce this sales tax accordingly. And we're not talking about, you know, right now we're talking about $300 and some odd thousand. $300 and some odd $1,000 to trim it out of the budget today would be a little difficult, particularly with some of the incidents we've had with ambulances and stuff like that this past year. You know, major expenditures on that. Jamie was talking about, you know, a future of building other stations to better spread our people out, you know. So I would like to make the point, or at least go on the record as making the point, that this board should have it in mind up front throughout the year of not only moderating the budget, but ensuring that we're getting what we're paying for, which I think the chief's doing a pretty good job on that. But at the same time, we need to talk and be thinking and letting it known publicly that we're looking to reduce the sales tax.
And that should always be part of the, when you go through that line item on the budget, that always should be part of consideration is that money well spent. Is there any other discussion?
I'd like to point out a couple things if it's okay.
Yes.
Number one, I just want to backtrack to where we were on Jamie's page. That $7 and that $4, that difference, that's a year. I'm a voter, I'm a taxpayer in this county. And I knew that I was voting for a higher tax when I signed up for this. I knew that I was voting not only for that, but with the reality in my mind that the peers I work with, the people I've known in EMS that work for private services that could not function here, not all of them could meet the bar. Not all of them would make it here at PCAD. And we have raised the bar, and we have an excellent service and excellent staff. And that's not a mistake. That's by design. We've toiled over this. A lot of these services that we're looking at here today have administrative staffs that are double, if not triple, the size of our own staff, and their wages reflect that as well. We don't have that here, so we have cut costs. We've cut costs since I came on. We did a mandatory monthly training for all our staff, and as you know, training is very near and dear to my own heart. We've cut that down to quarterly. It used to be monthly. That was a huge savings to the taxpayers, to the district. This last year has shown us there are some other ways that we can do that efficiently with online training. We've learned a lot over that time. So I don't necessarily regret going on that quarterly schedule versus monthly, but it is a way that we do constantly look at costs for this district. I don't like spending money. Another thing I wanted to point out was that we're not done. This district, it takes us on a good day with no traffic, it still takes us 12 to 15 minutes to get to the southwest of Sedalia and the west sometimes, depending on how clogged up 50 highway is. It was my understanding that we were going to build a large headquarters building on a 16th Street property. I didn't necessarily agree with that, and I don't think that necessarily this board did either, but I do believe it's very, very important that we look to the future and realize that we are going to need more stations. Calls don't go down, they go up. Every single year they go up. We started when this district was projected, back when Mr. Fritz was on that committee, it was projected we would run 3,700 calls per year. We've already more than doubled that, and I anticipate we will have tripled that in the next 4 to 5 years. Now, during that time, Wages are going up. Our EMT starting wage is below the projected minimum wage or the required minimum wage for Missouri in 2 years. That's $11.75 an hour. Minimum wage is going to be at $12 an hour. So I would ask this board, is that our goal, is to have our EMTs make a minimum wage? Are we going to have to look beyond that? I do believe we're going to have to look beyond that, especially when there's conversations at the federal level of bringing it up even further, up to $15 an hour. I don't know if that's realistic, but I do know that Missouri is absolutely going to happen. So I personally don't want to have an ambulance district where our bar is minimum wage. I don't think that's acceptable, and we're not going to draw good staff to that. So we have to move beyond that. Even by $1 or $2 makes a huge difference in the quality of staff that we bring here. We have examples of what happens when ambulance districts run without money. We've had examples right here in Pettis County, and I think I could probably tell some head-spinning stories that I'll refrain from telling in this meeting, but there's a reason we have a district. There's a reason it passed. There's a reason voters wanted it, and I'm very, very proud of what we do have for that matter. But meanwhile, while all those costs go up, everything goes up. Our call volume goes up. Inflation, housing prices, as we've seen, we had to basically cut benefits by having an increased, very large deductible for all of our staff now. That's essentially a cut in benefits. It's a cut in pay. Everything else is going up. CMS reimbursement, one of the things we learned over the past few years going to the classes that we've taken, the information we've taken from national organizations that have the data that I don't have, that you guys don't have. They have the national data on this. It's 16 to 23% below cost. That's what we get back on an average. So it's very important, I think, to keep in mind that we are not your normal business. We're not a school district. We're not anything like that. We are a public service, and we're an essential service. And I'll close on this. The fact that we are an essential service should weigh heavily when this board is deciding about what kind of reserves we do have. Not only on the information that we get from the American Ambulance Association, but from the ambulance service managers courses that we've taken. Everything tells us that these reserves are essential because we're an essential service. We can't close. We have to operate, and we can't operate without staff. That, I'm not trying to be a chicken little here, but the fact is we are just as essential as fire department and police, and we have to plan for that. I don't care that it hasn't happened before. Initial occurrence syndrome is a real thing. Just because it hasn't happened before doesn't mean it won't. There's examples of that across the world, from nuclear reactors to 9/11 to you name it. It's all been out there. It's all happened. And at the end of the day, I get paid to be paranoid, gentlemen. So I'll close with that. One other little point. I appreciate the work you've done. It sounds like you've really done some research on that. I just wanted to point out one glaring difference. I think I'll call it glaring, is those districts are established. And if there's one thing I want to get across to you guys today, I don't think we're done. I think we've got work to do. And I think maybe someday we can look at rolling things back. But right now, we are still growing, we're still developing, and it's very, very important to me. I live on the side of the county with no ambulance coverage. It's important to me personally and my family. So I think we have to keep those things in mind first and foremost, as well as our mission statement, which involves the little phrase, excellence in service. The only way we do that is by forward thinking and planning for the future. So thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Yes.
The chief or the CFO, since I'm kind of new at this stuff, I haven't been on a public board before. What landmarks do you look at to know when you can roll back taxes? Is it the surplus that you have? Is it, I don't know.
I think there's an element that's ongoing. We've provided that spreadsheet to the board before, and we could certainly bring it again. We've had to update it because of the equipment the board did approve this year, which we should certainly appreciate. Being established, I think, is a big deal. As we expand, as Pettis County expands, we do need new bases, but we're not always going to need new bases. We can build those bases to accommodate 2 crews and put 1 crew there and plan for that future that way. The other thing is like I said, the cash reserves, I think that the standard is what it is for a very good reason. And there's an element I didn't bring up here, which is we're in the middle of a pandemic and we're also in the middle of union negotiations. So those are two big question marks we all have. I don't know where it's going. I don't know where the next one's going to go, but they've really opened our eyes to a lot of the possibilities that are out there. But as far as what that metric is, what that yardstick is, I personally believe it's the establishment of those bases throughout the county that decrease our response
So how
times.
many is that? 2, 3?
That one I'm going to leave up to the board. Like I said, I think right now we have a station downtown. Not to get too far into the planning stage, but I'd like to continue to have a station downtown, even if we convert this house and do some creative thinking about what we do with our building across the street. I think that's got some neat options over there. But I do believe that, like I said, Southwest is there's a huge population in Southwest County. Mr. Meehan, he can tell you that the construction I don't even recognize the place anymore when I'm driving around out there. There's whole villages out there that just pop up seemingly overnight. And it bothers me that we don't have some service out there for those taxpayers. That's, I think, crucial, getting one out in that direction, getting one out west. I can see us needing at least 2 more stations out in the county and improving this one down here to where we can move some of the crews. I mean, I don't know if people know it, but these crews sleep in a common bunk area. They're literally on bunk beds stacked on top of each other. This is not a place we need to be at right now. We need to get them moved out. We need to get them separated to where they can respond to calls quickly and efficiently. Like I said, getting across Sedalia, probably don't need to tell anybody here how long that takes sometimes on any given day in the summer. We're trying to do it in emergency situations, and it still takes us a considerable amount of time to get there. So I think those metrics are measurable in response times. And the only way we can improve those is by putting bases in some different places. Sorry if that was long-winded, but that's kind of where my
That
thoughts
helps me a little bit.
are. Okay.
Is there any other discussion? There's a motion and a second on the floor to leave the sales tax rate as it is. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was the motion, but the motion was to discontinue talking about this anymore.
No, the motion was to leave the sales tax as it is.
Okay. I stand.
Motion fails for lack of majority.
So with that being the case, Mr. Chairman, I would so move that we roll back the sales tax from 0.005 to 0.0045, effective as soon as possible.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion, further discussion?
Yeah, I'm gonna say one final thing, and that is that, we, a lot of people fought long and hard to get a lot of good things happen in this district, okay? Unfortunately, bad things happen in this district in leadership, okay? So when you back this thing up to the point, okay, 2017 forward, when Mr. Dirk was given the reins when the Sedalia Police Department was making their arrest, this district's only 3 years old, okay? Just 3 years old. And, the plan going forward is to be able to serve this county as efficiently as possible with this mission statement. Okay, this mission statement, which we as board members swore we would uphold. Okay, and it's just after discussion, I just don't, in my conscience, I don't see how I could vote anything other than to leave the sales tax as it is and to fill my oath and to meet this mission statement that I swore I would uphold to do is serving the people with the finest EMS in Douglas County. Now that's the issue.
Is there any other discussion? There's a motion and a second on the floor to roll the sales tax back. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Motion fails for lack of majority. Since We have no new business. We'll move on to the closed meeting. We'll take a motion to go into closed session pursuant of RSMo 610.2021, section 9.
So moved.
Oh, this is here.
Sorry, we'll back up a second. Dr. Guess has joined us and we can step back and
Okay, yeah, I apologize for getting on late. One of the things that I'm interested in doing in the coming month or two is to go back through our, I had Ryan run off a report today about our cardiac arrest incidents in 2019 and 2020. And I kind of want to do some analysis on that to see what our survival rate is compared to the state of Missouri and to the national rate, and see where we stand and see what improvements we need to make so that we can improve cardiac arrest survival here in Pettis County Ambulance District. And that's any comments or questions from the board on this plan? That's pretty much all I have in terms of anything new or ongoing. So thank you. And again, I apologize for being late.
thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
Now we can take a motion to go to closed session pursuant RSMo 610.021, section 9.
Move that.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, and that'll be roll call.
Brown,
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes?
Fritz,
Yes.
Gerke,
Yes.
Meehan,
Yes.
Nail.
Yep.